thank you for joining us. We have the chance to have Daniel and Barbara with us, Newman. I had the chance to meet Daniel and Barbara last edition in Paris. They were gracious and beautiful hosts and shared their collection with some of our VIP partners. They are lovers of contemporary African art, and we're so happy that they decided and agreed to do our collector speak this afternoon. So I'm going to pass on and let Barbara and Danielle share their screen and tell us about their favorite picks.
Thanks a lot, Touria. It's great to see you again, and we do love the opportunity to explore the preview of the fair a couple of days earlier. It's obviously a very competitive landscape, even for the collectors. And
we really love the choice of the artists, and we decided to pick a selection of artists, some of whom we know very well, some we would like to know better, and some we never knew before, and we get to discover here with you.
Amazing. And we're happy that you're doing that. You know that New York had been our first format online last year. Yeah. So it's very interesting for people and for us to get feedbacks from collector on how does that change compared to, you know, the physical art fair, and how you go about choosing, you know, your artists when you're online.
You know, actually online is how we discover some of the artists that we're so close to with now. So I think online is a great, you know, it's a great tool. It's a great tool because you discover, and then you start, you know, researching the gallery, and you start researching the you know, the artist, and there's a lot of transparency on prices. So there's a lot of good positive features on the online.
Okay, perfect. So let us see what you have for us.
Sure.
Okay, so the first one is Katlego.
And Katlego, actually, we really like his work here, which we find to be this nice mix of interior and exterior shot. And he's also mixing what we think is a very sort of realistic and yet at the same time sort of surreal and dreamy quality. And we actually saw his work online during confinement, and then we got to speak to him several times, and we really got to see and observe just how inspirational and driven Katlego is. I mean, he's a very rational guy, but he's very involved in supporting his family as well as social and political issues that are dominating South Africa.
Yeah, he's very thoughtful, and I believe he's a rising star, and his work has already been exhibited in South Africa, in London, and soon in Paris. And for me, is an example of this self-empowered artist of his generation. So he's really careful in choosing the gallery that he's collaborating with, and he loves to participate on the 154 fair. We talked to him about many times with him.
It's funny that it's your first choice, because it's been my first choice as well. I really loved his work. You know, when I saw the press pictures a couple of months back, I didn't know him, so I really was very attracted to his work as well.
Yeah, and also there is a reference in every of his collages, paintings. There is a reference of a contemporary artist, and you see, does it look like Basquiat here?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, it's very layered, the work. So yeah. One number two is Ryan Cosbert. We have been admiring a very refreshing and abstract work in solos and group shows. I mean, she's super young. She's graduating college now at SVA, but she's already supported by collectors, very important collectors and other artists. And she's been featured by Luce Gallery, which is, you know, the gallery that we know very well. And Luce has a great eye for emerging artists, as you well know. And is that something you want to add?
And we also think that, speaking with her, she researches events around subjugation and oppression, and then does these sort of tile abstracts, as I think she calls them. And that gives a geometric form to these abstracts. And when we did speak to her, we could feel the commitment that she has to social justice issues, and really these unheralded stars of the civil rights era, which she on her own researches, like Claudette Colvin. So some people are familiar with Claudette Colvin's story in the 50s, and she was a star that could have and should have gotten a lot more recognition for what was going on during some of the busing segregation issues.
It's amazing that there's always such an inspiration behind each work, you know, like a story
Yes.
behind them.
Right. Yeah, especially with the abstract work, you don't have the narrative quality of the figurative work, but I really love the fact that she even in her titles, it's always an ode to something, you know, very deep, very social, very political. So good for her.
And then the third one here is Aboudia, and Aboudia's work, it's really drawing inspiration from sort of local street culture. If you look closely, you sort of see his hometown, which is in Ivory Coast, Abidjan, and it was obviously haunted by a lot of trauma in the past, especially in the last decade. And so his work seems very energetic and colorful, obviously, but it's also complex. I mean, it's depicting what seems to be very innocent kids, but they're surrounded by obviously very dark clouds and a dark world. And it's got a little bit of a Basquiat flavor to it, I think, and seems to be consistent with a lot of his work that's tied to the civil strife in the Ivory Coast during the presidential elections 10 years ago in 2011.
And I have to say, it's been quite a pleasure because we had the chance to have him since 2013 when we launched the fair.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been as popular then than he is now. You know, he grew, and you know, he's been very appreciated by the collectors at the fair, but also the auction houses in the past years. You know, so he's
That's very true.
He's been doing well.
Then we have the next Zeh Palito. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with Zeh, but he's also
he was in 154 Paris.
Yeah, and he's also at Luce Gallery, and we love this Zeh work. It's an iconic sort of feel good. It's almost like a 1950s Brazilian emblematic sort of statement, and Zeh gives you this kind of cool vibe, almost like being on a movie set in Brazil, maybe in the 1950s.
And I love his background is graffiti art, and also like Katlego, I feel like he really is a real empowered artist. So he's very, very careful. He's very independent. He's been building his kind of his craft from the ground up, and he's connecting with collectors personally, and he chooses to collaborate with galleries, and I feel like it's you know, artists right now are very you know, are very careful in they want to take their time before, for example, a presentation with a gallery. So we were lucky because we became quite good friends. So we did a lot of Zoom calls with him, and he showed us his place outside of Sao Paulo where he lives, and you know, he kind of let us into his creative world, and it was a privilege for us.
It really was.
That I'm curious, like, how do you start a relationship with the artists? Because you seem to talk a lot to the different artists you've discovered. Is it something done through the gallery, or is it a relationship built outside? You know,
it happens a lot in Instagram. I mean, it sounds like a kind of a cold tool, but at the same time, Instagram has become such a nice tool. You know, kind of breaking lots of barriers in a way. You don't need you know, you kind of connect. You either connect or you don't, but sometimes you really can connect, and then you follow up with a phone call. Typically, you know, you compliment a work, and the artists are say, where are you guys based? Would you know, and it becomes really an interesting conversation. I mean, we've been kind of cherishing this kind of moments.
Sort of the silver lining to confinement, really.
Yeah.
So it changes a little, obviously, the relationship, because I mean, obviously, typically the galleries are understandably a little protective, and that's part of their role, you know, as sort of the backbone for the artist. But now you sort of have a bit of a different culture developing among the artists who are choosing, as Barbara was saying, in a more cautious way where they go and how they go, and they ask a lot of questions before they leap, which is pretty amazing given, you know, probably a lot of economic pressures a lot of them have on them. But they're respectful, you know, of their creative talent, and they want it to seem like they really want to develop, you know, in a very, you know, enriching, organic way. So
Great.
That's kind of those were kind of the ones that we were going to focus on with you, and you know,
oh, fantastic!
with brevity being the soul of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was introduced to Zeh Palito last edition only in Paris. I didn't know his work before.
Yeah.
It's quite nice to be able to have, you know, a few Afro-Brazilian artists, you know, as part of the fair. I know we have another gallery who joined this year in this edition in New York, and it's quite exciting to have that geography of the world as well as part of, you know, 154.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for this. It was been great to have those highlights from you, and I'm gonna thank you, and hopefully to see you soon in a physical fair, hopefully in London.
Hopefully in London in October.
Thank you,
we look
Touria.
so forward to it.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you for your
You're
time.
welcome. You're welcome.